I have a job for you.
Jeez, it's not another arc, is it?
No, not again. This time I need a full-scale home renovation.
Noah Construction and Builders is your design and build partner. We do it all, from additions and dormers to full-scale renovations. Schedule your no-cost design consultation today. Visit us online at noahconstruction-builders.com.
Noah Construction and Builders. Through dreams we design, with vision we build.
And welcome to MuscleSport Media Live, WGBB Radio, 95.9 FM, 1240 AM, and also streaming live on WGBBradio.com. And Trevor just informed me, the TuneIn app also. So if you can listen to us live on all of these different web stream things. So Trevor, good looking out with that heads up on the TuneIn app. I will be promoting that moving forward. I should have been doing that all along. But of course, we want to thank our title sponsor, Noah Construction-Builders.com. Pete and the guys over at Noah, no job too big nor small for them over there. I am Joe Pietaro. Anthony was unavailable tonight, but he will be back 1 week from today. And I also have good news. We have a new sponsor starting tonight on MuscleSport Media Live over here. Benedetto's Pizza and Pasta. 504 Union Boulevard, West Islip, 631-587-7000. Very easy number to remember. Listen, where do we start? Let's start with their special, large pie special, only $11. Sunday, Monday, Tuesdays. You guys, the prices of pizza have gone crazy. Brian at Benedetto's has done something about it. Maybe you like Sicilian better than round. $16 every day, no limit for a square. I call it square, Sicilian pie. You're not going to see that. Maybe you like those specialty pies with all of that stuff on top of it. $19. You got a big party coming up. Maybe you do. I used to do the coaching for the kids, and we would have big pizza parties for the kids at the field or at one of our backyards or something. 5 pies, $50 every day, 7 days a week over at Benedetto's. Maybe you worked a little late and you don't feel like cooking anything. They got a late night special. Regular pie from 7 p.m. to closing. $11. That low price comes up again with Benedetto's. Back the blue special on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And maybe you're in the mood for something other than pizza. So many options at Benedetto's. This one jumps off the page of me, though. $30 for only 3 heroes, 12 garlic knots, and a 1 1/4 liter bottle of soda. And, of course, their thank you, 10% off every day for veterans, seniors, police, fire, hospital workers, nurses, and teachers. Every day, 10% off. Benedetto's Pizza Pasta NY.com. I go there. It's my neighborhood. I love it. So check it out, and thank you for Brian and the guys at Benedetto's for being the latest sponsor on MuscleSport Media Live on WGBB Radio. Interesting topic has been coming up in the bodybuilding industry, more of the bodybuilding media industry, and it kind of delved into the sports media industry. So I started watching some videos over the weekend and more today that have been doing the rounds online, Instagram, YouTube, and the like. And I wanted to jump on this because I think I can definitely could add to it. And I wanted to give my opinion. And when I did the promos, I said my opinion might surprise you. So just a little quick background. I mean, this all kind of started going back to the Prague show, which Giles Thomas, who I know, I worked the muscular development with Giles. He's from England. Really nice guy. He's a very well-spoken guy. He's been covering the sport for a number of years, and he's been a competitor too. He's been on stage before, something I've never even thought about doing. So you don't need to be a competitor to cover the sport, first of all. But Giles has that in his resume. So he was on Ron Harris's show, and they were talking about an incident. I know Ron also, we worked at MD together as well at the same time. They were talking about at the Prague show, Giles actually was hired by the promoters. He was doing the commentary on the pay-per-view, the live video feed. So he's not just, somebody that's in the media. He was doing the actual show commentary, which is a pretty big deal. It's only 2 guys do it. He was one of them. And they were in an area after the show, and Martin Fitzwater took exception to what we're assuming. Giles says he didn't come into great condition the year before that. And Fitzwater, basically got into Giles' face while he was videoing with his cell phone and said, if you're going to talk S about me, say it to my face. And he kind of tapped Giles' phone. Now, listen. I'm from the world of sports writing. There was a very infamous incident that happened in the late 70s with Steve Serby, who was a New York Jets beat writer and still covers the Jets for the Post, and Brian Costello is the main day-to-day guy, but Serby still works there. And he was talking about Richard Todd, who was the quarterback at the time, and he was saying that Todd was not playing well. This is the guy's job. The athletes, sometimes they do take it personal. And Richard Todd literally stuffed Steve Serby into a locker at Shea Stadium at the time. I guess a more recent incident would have been Bart Scott when he played for the Jets. He does a lot of media stuff now on CBS and WFAN. He took exception to some stuff that guy I know for many years as a sports writer, Dan Leberfeld, the founder and editor of Jets Confidential, and I actually did Jets Confidential Radio for about a year or so years ago with Dan's company. And Bart Scott didn't like what Dan said about him and got a little loud to him in the locker room. Very unprofessional. I mean, athletes, maybe the guy said something you don't like, then maybe you don't answer his question. That's how you get back at a reporter. You can't get like Fitzwater, borderline physical. He didn't touch the guy, but he slapped the phone. Very unprofessional. So the conversation kind of went into who has the right to cover bodybuilding. And I kind of really thought about it for a little bit, and I was like, all right, it kind of is 2 separate type of things. When I broke into sports writing, this was going back to 2005. So at the time, there really was no internet writing. There was either you were a print writer or you were nothing. You were a fan. That was it. There was no in-betweens. Magazines and newspapers, I wrote for both of them, various ones. New York Sports Scene was the main one I was the editor-in-chief of. And, we used to get credentials for games, Super Bowls. The pad I have here actually is one from a Super Bowl going back when. I had a couple of pages left in it. I couldn't find anything to write my notes in today, and this was laying on the shelf. So going back then, that's basically what it was. There was no .coms credentialed at sporting events. At the time, I was not covering bodybuilding, granted. So I can't say what was going on in the bodybuilding, shows. And then the first time I remember seeing a .com was at a Super Bowl. I believe it was 08 or 09. And it was yahoosports.com. Now, obviously, that's a big company, Yahoo. They had a big Yahoo Sports footprint for years. They don't have it anymore. But it was the first .com that I ever remember seeing in a press box at an event, and it was the Super Bowl. But listen, it was Yahoo, and it kind of makes sense. The first team in professional sports to allow bloggers to get credentials were the New York Islanders. And now at the time, the Islanders were doing really bad and did not get a lot of coverage, so they were kind of hoping that they were going to get bloggers to come there, and they basically were fanboys. Now, things are very different now. What I'm trying to say is at the time when I first got into covering bodybuilding in '08, I had the mentality that I did as a sports writer. For right or wrong, probably more for the wrong, because I was not aware that things were different on that side. But I did get a hint, because the first time, when I first started covering MMA, when it first got like legal, before the even was in New York, when it was in Jersey, I remember going to the Brendan Byrne Arena, which I think Prudential Center, I think it's called now, or whatever, the one by the old Giant Stadium, for a Strike Force event, and there was people in the press box drinking beers, eating hot dogs, and cheering, and I'm like, what's going on over here? And these were all just basically bloggers that had like a little video camera way before the days of iPhones and all of that stuff. And I kind of got the feeling like these guys aren't like real journalists. They're just kind of, they got, I don't know, credential, maybe they knew somebody, whatever. There were some real journalists in there. I like to think I was one of them. I hope so. I covered it straight as a sporting event. I had no beers. I had no hot dogs. I had at the time, we used to have, you did your laptop, you had your still camera, you had your video camera, and you did all you could if you didn't have somebody shooting it for you at the time. I don't recall if I had somebody shooting at the time at ringside. But I was covering the event nonetheless, and we also covered underground MMA in New York back then, in like Brooklyn and the Bronx and stuff like that, which is a totally different animal. But bodybuilding was different. When I first started getting into the bodybuilding scene, going to the Arnold, the Olympia, and Nationals and all different shows, bodybuilding's different. Now, yes, there was print versus not print. I worked for Muscle Development, Flex, Muscle and Fitness, and I wrote for a bunch of other magazines. But I also was going in under my own umbrella of MuscleSport Media, which I launched in '08. And I did start to see there was a lot of different people covering the sport. Now, it's very different from team sports. I'll use that as a, basically just kind of separate the two issues. It seemed like the bodybuilding media felt that they needed to, you needed to be a bodybuilder and be on a stage at some level to have a voice to talk about it. Now, the thing with the sports is you have two guys covering it, the play-by-play and the color commentator. Play-by-play is usually a guy who's just an announcer. Color commentator, for the most part, is a retired player and brings a lot of good things to the table. Now, one of the shows that I was watching was The Voice of Bodybuilding with Bob Ciccarello and Sean Ray, two guys that I know personally, I have a ton of respect for, and they have a lot of skin in this game. Sean Ray, arguably, one of the best bodybuilders in the 90s. He just ran into a brick wall with Dorian Yates, unfortunately, and never got a Sandow, but it was very close, and some people think he should have got at least one. And Bob Chick has a Masters Olympia under his belt. Plus, he's also the main MC at all the big shows. So those two guys, I mean, they're pretty much the top of the line when you talk about covering the sport and talking about it. And Sean Ray even brought up the whole Troy Aikman and Tom Brady as a color commentator and things like that. And they were basically saying that the thing that makes them different is they're at these shows where a lot of these podcasters and .com guys and Instagram pages are just going off of photos they're seeing online. They're not at the show actually seeing what's going on there. And also Sean was saying that they worked with the founding fathers, the Weeders. I mean, that's a big difference. And Bob also said anyone with a mic thinks they're an expert. We're professionals. I told him, Bob, I do agree with you. And he says we're not TMZ. And Sean Ray, he's a very outspoken guy, and that's why some people hate him, some people love him. I think it's great when he's outspoken because he brings a little realism to the table. And he says, I'm going to continue to be me, report the news as we see it firsthand in person, That's the difference in bodybuilding. You get a lot of these guys that give you like fake news, is what Sean was saying. But he also did say you don't have to be a bodybuilder to be an expert. He did say that, and he brought up Tyler Mannion as an example, saying his grandfather Jim was a bodybuilder, but he grew up in bodybuilding, Tyler, and that was one of the examples that he gave. And Bob said the track record to be an expert, you got to be right most of the time, which is also a thing too. Like bodybuilding shows people handicap them. You know, they'll say, who do you think's going to win the Arnold? Who's going to win the Olympia? Who's going to win the Prague? You don't get that on an NFL broadcast. Maybe when they have to give the plug to the FanDuel or whatever. But you don't get like, I think that, so in the pregame shows you get that. But for the most part, nobody remembers who these guys picked. In bodybuilding, when these guys say, I think, Samson's going to win the Olympia, it's going to be Derek, people kind of remember that. So I think Bob and Sean made excellent points on that. And I had given the number out because this show is also streaming, and it's 516-623-1240. If you think what I'm saying is right, wrong, or somewhere in the middle, let me know, because I'm going to have this stuff up on YouTube afterwards. But I would love to get feedback while I'm doing the show. Another thing was the muscle news with Kevin Grench and Eric Braza. Now, I know Kevin for years. He and I go way back. He has covered this sport for a long, long time. I believe on his latest video, he said it's been 14 years. So he's got a lot of things going over there. His partner, Eric, was saying about published articles. Again, I'm going to say I agree with it to a certain extent if you're the play-by-play guy, not the color commentator. Again, I go back to the sports angle to try to differentiate these two things and bring people in the comparison mode of how bodybuilding, it's two different functions. When you're a writer, it's because things have gone so digital now. Everything is video. People very rarely sit back and type out an article. All right, I got the last bodybuilding magazine that's still in print. There's a few fitness magazines out there, but you don't get many articles, and people really don't go online to read articles. They go there to watch the videos, and they rather see a vlogcast, a podcast, and something like that. So to say I got articles published more than Sean Ray, like Eric was doing, and listen, I think Eric brings a lot of good things to the table, as does Kevin. I enjoy the program. I always liked Kevin's site that he had for many years, Evolution of Bodybuilding. But I have to say I don't compare the published articles versus the thing, because that was kind of what I said was us being in print versus these bloggers. The lines have blurred now. There really is no separation between who's a journalist. People call themselves a journalist when they're doing Instagram videos. That's not journalism. But again, like I said, things have changed over the years, and made things much different than they used to be. Like when I first got into this thing, I was a little surprised, like I said, that so many of these people gave their opinion, and people gave them solace and said, okay, their opinion means something. To them it does. To their fans it does. To me it doesn't matter. There could be 1 million guys out there calling these shows. It doesn't mean that what they're doing is good. But if they have fans and they like it, then all right, I don't have a problem with that. They may know more about bodybuilding than I do. I never said I'm an expert in bodybuilding. I follow the sport. I think I can bring an opinion to the table and say, I think, like I've been talking up Andrew Jack for the past 3 years. If you go back and look at my articles on MuscleSport, I think he should have won the Olympia and the Arnold a few times already, and I'm going to continue that. I think he's going to win the Arnold easily this year and come to the Olympia, and we'll see if he can maintain his conditioning, because the Olympia is in September this year. It's different. and it's also different location, but that's a subject for another day. But I just want to take a quick break to mention Angie's Empanadas, another one of our content sponsors, two-time Best of Long Island winner. Their food truck has built a loyal following all across Long Island, traveling to events and farmers markets. Owners Angie and Mo bring their mouth-watering flavors to hungry customers. Their commitment to high-quality local source ingredients has made them a must-try favorite. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at a local festival or market. Check their website. They also do catering. So check them out at Angie'sEmpanadas.com or on IG, Angie's Empanadas, LILLC. Find out where they'll be next or contact them if you want them at your event. So even though it's winter, like I said, they do catering and stuff too. So 12 months a year you can get stuff from Angie's Empanadas. Yeah, so definitely the lines have blurred with the technology from the days where we had print versus nothing with the bloggers. You know, I mean, I look back at it a little bit and I'm like, well, these guys were just passionate about it, but they weren't doing it to make money. They were doing it for love. I said, do I like doing what I'm doing? Yeah, but to me, I'm doing it to earn a living. If I was getting no money, no advertisers, I probably would have packed it in, you know. But we're still here. I mean, you go back to podcasts. Now, Greg always mentions on Greg and Joe, Enhanced Labs presents the Greg and Joe show, Greg Valentino, that when we were at Muscular Development, we used to call it the radio show. It was a podcast. Now, we had actually a real Voice America. It actually had a real studio we used to call in. I believe it was Arizona. We used to call in, and there was like the Trevor guy who does Trevor's job, answer the phone and would patch things in and say, like, I had the, you know, it was still on the phone, but I had, like, he would talk in one mic that was just me and him, and he'd be like, all right, 30 seconds to break, and he would start playing the music. So I would say, all right, Greg, we're going to have to hold that thought. We're going to have a break now, blah, blah, blah. So it was like real radio. But when we first started podcasts, I had a podcast I started. It was New York Sports Scene Radio, I think it was called. And then I started MuscleSport Radio in '08. And this was hardline phones. You used to call in this, it was blogtalkradio.com. You would call in and you could upload a intro, you know, an audio intro, and then you could even take phone calls on it. You'd have like once you got into your account, you would see like a screen there, and you could take phone calls, and like I would have guests calling in and talking. I had Ronnie Coleman on that show going way back when. Back, I think he was like 2010 back then when I had Ronnie on. So we're talking about the infancy of what was called podcasts back then. They were very archaic in comparison to what we're looking at now. And people still call, I mean, for a while it was vlogcast, but now it's just like video podcast. I mean, you'd say, oh, podcasters, who are they? They're nothing. Joe Rogan has the biggest show in all media, regardless of the platform. TV, radio, whatever. I don't care what you do. Joe Rogan has got the hottest show. And it's a podcast with video. So I kind of feel like it's a little bit of open territory. It's kind of still Wild West type of thing in all media outlets, not just bodybuilding and sports, but in all industries. It's kind of like the Wild West, because anybody could just get an Instagram account and start doing Instagram lives. You don't even need, a lot of people don't even use websites anymore, which I think is a mistake. I think that maybe that will be the thing that separates the men from the boys, if you will. I got it, social media only. Social media, we used to use it. I had a MySpace with New York Sports Scene and with MSM. We used to use it to drive people to the site, subscribe and all of that, to the magazine. And we got the new cover feature with, I don't know, Andy Pettit or whatever. I mean, I'm just throwing some things out there. So the old days, social media was used to drive. Now it seems like the websites are more of a hub for all of the things you're doing out there on the various social media. And yeah, I'll call YouTube a social media, even though it's a little different, it's a little bigger. It's still a social media type of site. When you see links on people's link tree or whatever, they have all of their social media, and one of them's always YouTube. So we'll call it, for lack of a better term, it's a social media site as well. And obviously that's a huge thing to have as something which the camera, I'm videoing this show like I do every Monday at WGB here in studios in Merrick, Long Island, New York. And I upload it on MuscleSport TV YouTube, and it'll be up sometime later this evening. By 11 p.m. I'll have it up there. And, these are the things that, again, who has the right to be a bodybuilding journalist? I guess there is no right. It's if you want to do it, if you're passionate about it, but you have to separate the fan from the business. And we had an old saying, there's no cheering in the press box. And we always knew at the end of the year, especially like for the Jets and Giants when they were having bad years, the last home game of the year is like 20,000 no-shows in the stands. It's brutal weather, freezing cold, December, and, you see young kids with jerseys in the press box because they're related to somebody, whatever. Who cares? I mean, but you can't use that and say, I want to be taken seriously and be, have a voice in this industry that people are going to go to and listen to. I'll give you a perfect example. Nick Miller, Nick's Strength and Power. He's done articles for us. He's a young guy. He is dynamite in what he does. He is very, very polished. I met him at the Arnold. We spoke. He did an article for us, like a contributing writer thing. And I'd love to do more stuff with him. And he had something to say about this thing. Now, here's a young kid. I don't even know if he's like 30 now, who is in, good shape. I don't think he ever was on stage. He's just into this stuff. And he breaks down these shows, and he does a great job of them. To me, okay, and he actually even also did the play-by-play, and I think Arnold sat in for a little bit with them while they were doing it, and I think Aaron Singerman was there. That's when Nick was doing some stuff with Red Zone? Not Red Zone. Red Conwan, excuse me. I apologize. So Nick's got his chops early in things, and you know what? He wouldn't have got that if he wasn't good at what he did. So he separates that, there's no pom-poms. He was talking business when he was doing his shows, and his article, to me, was phenomenal. I loved it. And then you got a guy like Louis Marco, who I get along great with. I was had him, was I on his or I had him on mine? I forget, one or the other. He's more of a BB, my father used to say, a ball breaker, if you will. He likes to needle some of these bodybuilders. They're not proper and all of that stuff. But that's Louis Marco's shtick. You have to realize his shtick. I mean, he got Phil Heath to go on Instagram Live right after winning a Sandow. I believe it was his 7th in a row, to knock Louis Marco, because Louis said he wasn't going to win because he said he had a bubble gut. So Phil Heath, and I thought that was, you didn't need to do that. Go celebrate and enjoy it. But it kind of was funny in a way. I mean, the first thing he wanted to do was stick it into Louis Marco's face that he won. And he did it from backstage holding the Sandow. So Louis Marco brings a completely different animal to the table, other than the Nick Strength and Power or Kevin Grench does or Ron Harris does. He does things with it's a lighthearted, and it's more of a fun thing. And, he's in and out, like he'll disappear for a while. And I actually saw him at the Olympia in Vegas this past year. He was in town. So there's different strokes for different folks. When I do my Instagram lives, they're very different from this show. People say to me, how do you do terrestrial radio with the way you talk on your inside. I'm like, because it's two different things. I know what I can and can't do, so I don't. It's just called knowing and having self-control. But I just thought this was an interesting topic. I want to pick up on this on Wednesday on Greg and Joe's show because I think Greg is gonna. He knows all of these guys, and he'll have definitely some stuff to say about it. But we are going to leave it there. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of MuscleSport Media Live on WGBB Radio. We'll see you next week.
Noah, I have a job for you.
Jeez, it's not another arc, is it?
No, not again. This time I need a full-scale home renovation.
Noah Construction and Builders is your design and build partner. We do it all, from additions and dormers to full-scale renovations. Schedule your no-cost design consultation today. Visit us online at noahconstruction-builders.com.
Noah Construction and Builders, through dreams we design with vision we build.